Here are all the tools and supplies you're going to need to accomplish this procedure. I'm using a 25 watt soldering iron with a fine tip. And by the way, I'm putting a link to all this stuff in the video description at Amazon, which is where I get this stuff. Some of the stuff I got at Radio Shack, but it's all available on Amazon. Again, 25 watt soldering iron. You may be able to get away with something lower, like a 15, but I'm using a 25 watt and it worked. With a fine tip, 60-40 solder, rosin core solder, desoldering braid. This is a nice to have just in case you bridge something. This will allow you to desolder or take the solder off the board. Side cutters, a couple of case opening tools. These are basic plastic pry bars that I have to open up the actual router. If you don't have these, find something similar. Preferably something soft made out of plastic, or maybe even something made out of wood. You can use a screwdriver, but there's a chance with a screwdriver that you scratch it or break the actual plastic on the router. So I suggest using something like this. A number 1 Phillips screwdriver, a fairly stiff and thick paper clip. I'm going to be using the paper clip for pins that we're going to solder onto the motherboard of the router. And last, we're going to have the serial breakout, USB breakout adapter. And I got this from Amazon again, and this one's from by a company called Kedsum, and it's a CP2102 module SDC download cable, USB 2.0 to TTL 6-pin serial converter for SDC. So basically, it is a serial to USB converter, and you need a similar unit. I recommend strongly that you use the exact same unit that I got from the same supplier because I know it works. And basically, I'll put the link for this at Amazon in the video description, and it's only $7 or $6.99 at the current date for one of these units, and it works great. So I strongly suggest you get this. It comes with a connecting cable, which it will require to connect to your router motherboard. And next, I'm going to go into more detail about this little unit, the CP2102, because there's a few things about it that you need to know prior to connecting it to your router. So let's get on with that. So here's the CP2102 breakout circuit board, as you can see right there. A couple things. Number 1, it's a 5-volt circuit. It's not a 5-volt circuit. It's wired as a 5-volt circuit when you get it out of the box, and it can be actually adjusted or changed to a 3.3 volt circuit. Now, that means not, if you don't know anything about electronics, that doesn't mean a lot. But basically, the issue with it is that the router we're going to connect it to is a 3.3 volt circuit. Now, I'm only going to be using 3 pins on this actual breakout board, and that'll be transmit, receive, and ground. Okay, so actually no voltage from this unit itself is going to be going to the router, but I strongly suggest that you modify it slightly to make it to turn it into 3.3 volts. Why? What if you accidentally hook up the voltage lead to your router? If it's at 5 volts, it may fry the circuit. So again, I'm only going to use three terminals, and that's ground, transmit, and receive. And all those 3 are perfectly safe on either setting, 5 volts or 3 volts. So this is an optional, nice to do, kind of a safety thing, but it's not a required thing to do. So I'll show you what I mean and what you need to do to get that to happen. Okay, so now we're looking at the back end of that. And I'm going to get a closer view on this so you can actually get a better view of what I'm explaining here. Okay, again, this is an optional step. You don't really need to do it. If you're careful with this unit, you'll not hooked up voltage to your router, and it won't hurt it either way. But you can see right here where it's labeled 5 volts and 3 volts. Okay, and by default it comes with the 5 volt activated, and the way to disactivate or deactivate the 5 volts is to basically cut the trace between these two pads. There's actually 3 pads here. You can't see them because I've actually soldered 2 of them together. But what you do to disable the 5 volts is cut between the 2 pads here. There's a little trace, and you very carefully use a very sharp knife and just basically cut down until you get no connectivity between those 2 pads. And then to activate the 3 volts, you put a piece of solder between the 2 pads on this side that activate 3 volts. Again, this is optional. You don't really need to go there. If you only connect 3 cables to it, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 volts or 3 volts. I just like to be safe. And here's the other side so you can see. There's the receive, and there's the transmit, and there's the ground. And those are the 3 we're going to use. Never connect the VCC. That's where the voltage comes out of. And the reason I set it to 3.3 volts is absolutely just, you know, a little OCD on my part and safety. Again, you don't need to do it, just showing it to you in case you need, in case you're capable of doing that yourself. These are very tiny components, and you know, you need to be quite careful when you're handling them not to damage them, especially when you're soldering on them or when you're cutting a trace. So next we're going to take apart the router. So first step in disassembling the case on this router, of course, is unplug all the cables and wires that you got going to it, number 1. Number 2, you're going to remove the aerials, and they just screw on here, so unscrew them. You notice that you have very little area here to actually get onto the grip, but basically just turn them counterclockwise and remove the aerials. All right, once you've done that, the next thing you're going to need to do, and I've already done it, but you need to remove 2 rubber pads here on the bottom. And after you remove the 2 rubber pads, you'll find 2 screws here that you can remove with a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. I've already removed them. And the next thing you need to do, and by the way, guys, just so you know, doing this will absolutely void your warranty, regardless. If your router is, bricked, it's probably something that's not under warranty anyway, but regardless. Then the next thing you need to do is remove this back sticker here. And in the center, you'll find another number 1, sorry, I don't know if I said number 1 or number 2, but it's a number 1 Phillips screw right in the center. So once you remove those 3 screws, this with a number 1 Phillips driver here, these 2 here, then at that point you can actually begin to disassemble the case. Now, the case is kind of a weird build. It actually has a top cover and then an undercover underneath this, and I'll see if I can show you what I mean by that when I start disassembling it. Okay, we're going to start with our pry tools at the center here, and basically just get under the lip, and it's a really tight fit on this cover. They put it on there really well. Trying to get a good solid fit here. I think, okay, there we go. I got a nice opening there on the edge. So just pry till you get it up a little bit here. And then again, I use my second tool here. I mean, this one just maintains pressure while I pry with the second tool. And like I said, you can use a screwdriver here, but you will scratch the plastic. And you know, there's a chance that you could break the plastic as well. So I'm going to go like this and just work my way around. And I'm not sure whether you can see it or not. There we go. We have a top cover, and then you see underneath that there is a bottom half to that cover. So this part and this part are separate, but they're put together. But again, what you're working on is the second part. That is the white underpiece here. So I'm just going to see what I can do here. I got some, just pry along the way. Not an easy case to open, let's put it that way. There we go. Got one there. And I've got my hooks facing this way. So, and once you pop it in one spot, then I move my second pry to that attaches, that creates pressure there. And then again, there we go. Okay, so there's more or less the bottom portion undone. I'm going to move to the edge here, and you can see again, I'm going to use the same procedure. Move that one as far as the lock goes, and then use this one to pry again. There we go. And like I said, not a lot of fun to take this apart. Keep moving. Same procedure again. Pry. There we go. There we go. And there we go. Popped off. All right, now we're looking at the inside of the actual unit. And here again, we got some screws that need to come out. You'll see we have 3. 1, 2, 3. They all need to come out of there. So your Phillips number 1 again. It's a well-built router. Okay, so the next thing is a bit of a trick. Is this reset button here, or the Wi-Fi switch here. It's really long, and it actually locks this whole board into the unit. So let me zoom this back out a little bit so you can actually experience this. So what I'm going to do is that you see that it's sitting on through this post here and this post here. So you need to lift off these 2 posts on this way towards the camera or towards you. So I'm going to do that. That unlocks it. And then you move in this direction, the bottom half in that direction, until you see this black post here. And don't pull up until you see the black post clear. It's kind of a really, there we go, like that. And now the whole thing comes out. So, you know, follow that procedure. Lift this edge first, you know, rotate it a little bit that way, but not a lot, and push it in this direction to clear this this switch. If you put a lot of pressure on the switch, I'm sure it'll bust right off. So be real careful with that. Okay, so there's the board. We got it out. So we'll take the clamshells and put the 2 halves away. And there we go. Now, the next thing we need to do, and I've got it labeled here, is, and I've already put these posts in because I've done this whole procedure before making this video. I wanted to make sure it worked. It does work. Okay, so if you look at the top right between the 3 antennas, if they're facing in this, you know, direction, you'll see 4 holes that go right through the whole board. We're only going to use 3 of these, and that is the very far right, which is a transmit. The next one is the receive, and the next one is the ground. Okay, and what I did is I took my trusty paper clip, and I basically cut about 1 centimeter long, maybe a little longer, you know, I'd say 1/2 inch long piece of this wire, and inserted it through here and soldered it on. Now, understand I can't stress this enough. Do not solder on this side of the board. I'll show you why. Okay, on this side of the board, there's a circuit right here. There's a little resistor, I believe that's what that is. And, you know, I soldered on this side, made that mistake, and I actually bridged that resistor. I was actually able to get the bridge off of it, but there's no need to even take that chance. You don't need to solder on this side. So what you'll do is you'll stick your pin through, and then solder on the back end, okay? And only on the back end using your fine tipped soldering iron. And now, you know, again, you got to be real careful with these pins, and make sure that you put a nice blob on each one of them and that you get them hot enough. You may want to use, I don't know, something to hold the other end, but there, you know, when you're holding, if you don't hold the other end with your finger, because it will actually burn you. So maybe a pair of needle nose pliers or something to hold the pins. And then basically what you're going to do is you take your soldering iron and put a blob of solder on each one of these, right? And now make sure that they're not bridged. If you see a blob going between any of these 3 pins or anywhere else from here, then you use your desoldering braid to get that off. Now, this is not a tutorial on soldering. If you want a tutorial on soldering, you can YouTube that, and there'll be 100 of them there for you. So basically, those are the 3 pins on this side that you want to actually attach to the board. If you're having a problem getting solder to adhere to the pads, take your Phillips number 1 here, or a smaller one. And what I do is I just stick it in the hole like this, and then lightly turn it like this to basically give it a bit of abrasion and take the coating off the actual metal if there is some there. And by doing that and getting a little bit of abrasion on the actual pad, then it will take the solder much easier. Other thing too is make sure that you get the pin nice and hot as you get the solder, basically. So once you have the solder melted, just leave the heat on it for a second. Remember, holding the other side with a pair of needle nose or something similar to that. My favorite tool is a set of forceps that I use that lock. So basically, I'll lock the pin into one of these, and again, these are nice to have, not necessary to have, and then hold it underneath and then solder it. That's the easiest way I had to do it. So once you get that done, you're going to flip it back over. I strongly suggest that you label it like I did, transmit number 1, receive number 2, ground number 3. And basically, at this point, you're ready to hook it up to your serial converter. And again, only 3 pins, and double, triple check on your serial converter that you're connecting it to the right pins, right? So we're going to do, receive on this pin, on this side, okay, goes to transmit on that side. And transmit on this side goes to receive on this side. You basically need to cross. So, this one's transmitting, this one's receiving, this one's this one's receiving, this one's transmitting, this one's transmitting, this one's receiving. And then the last pin down here, ground, goes to ground, okay? Once you've got that connected, which I'll show you next, then you're ready to connect to your laptop or computer and proceed to the next step. I've connected the 3 leads to the actual serial converter. Ground is green, transmit is white, and receive is black on the converter. It's going to be reversed on the other side. I tied back all the other leads so that there's no chance of connecting the incorrect one, primarily the voltage. And on the actual board, we're going to connect this in reverse. So what I mean is that the transmit on the board goes to the receive on the actual unit. So transmit is on the board is TX is white. So we're going to do the white to the receive on the router right there. And we're going to do the black to the transmit because black is receive on the breakout board, and ground is of course the last one on the very left, like so. So this is what we got. Let me get it so you can read it. There we go, like so. Next, we connect this to the computer, and we're going to download a piece of software called Putty, and I'll show you what this looks like when you boot it up, connected to your computer and communicating correctly. So we're going to connect the power to the router, but we're not going to power it on yet. I'm using a laptop to connect to this router. You can use a regular PC if you wish, and I'm using Windows 10 also as the software or operating system that I'm running. If you're running Mac or Linux, well, then you're going to have to figure out how to use the same type of software to do the same sort of thing with this router. I'm only explaining it in Windows 10 for the majority of people who are running that. So, but the mechanics will be the same in Mac or in Linux as well. So first thing we're going to do here on mine is I have a little a network port on the side. I'll show you that right there. There we go. And I'm going to connect my patch cable that came with the router from there to port number 1 in the LAN side, which is the yellow plugs, and the one nearest to the blue plug is number 1. So we'll take our patch cable, connect that, as such. Now my power is off on this right now on the router. I do have the power cord connected to it, but it's off. And then we'll connect the patch cable into the laptop. Like I said, if you're using a PC, like a computer, this works as well. And then we got the USB connector, and it's going to connect into the side of the laptop as well. And after we're done doing that, we're basically ready to begin. Except for one thing, we need to download a program called PuTTY, which is a terminal emulator, and I'll show you how to do that next. Now, notice that when I plug that in, there's a little red LED on this that shows you that it's active. So it's ready to go. Make sure the pins are all nice and snug into the unit, and you know that they're again connected in the right place on the router motherboard. Double check, make sure. Just refer to the picture I showed you prior to this and the video prior to this, the video clip prior to this also, to verify that you've got it. You know, receive going to the transmit on the board, transmit going to the receive on the board, and ground going to ground. And if you activate this PuTTY software, as I'm going to show you next, and you don't get any communication, then I would suggest reverse the transmit and receive wires and see if that works for you. You may have gotten it backwards. Now that we've got our physical setup all properly configured, I thought of one thing here, and that is prior to plugging in your USB CP2102 breakout card, you may want to get the drivers, but what we're going to do first is plug it in, and I'll simulate not having the drivers. So let's plug the breakout USB serial card in here. My computer senses it, and it's not asking me for drivers, so I'm assuming that it's okay with it, but that's an assumption. So, but if yours asks for drivers, I'll show you where to go get them. Just open up your browser. I'm using Firefox here, and in the search window, type in Silicon Labs CP210X. Okay, so click on that. Then it'll give you the link here, this link right here. And I'll put this into the video description as well. So just click on the first one you get here. Should look like this one. All right, and then choose your operating system from here. The first one's probably the one that most people are using. And then it says download this VCP blah 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 default here. So I'll put this link here into the video description for you to make it easier, just in case you have a hard time finding it. And then you can come here and get it if your computer is asking for it. Mine is not. So I'm thinking Windows 10 is covering it, but it's up to you. If you have any difficulties with that, then come here and get it. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to go to the device manager. So in your search window, just type in device man, and that should show you device manager for control panel here. So double click on that. And what we're going to do is go to the COM ports, and you can see that my computer has the Silicon Labs CP210X USB to UART bridge on COM6. Now you have to do this step because this step tells you what COM port that actual USB UART bridge is on. Mine is on COM port 6. Yours may be different. And if yours in here shows an unknown device and doesn't show the COM port in LPT subdirectory or sub menu, then you probably require the drivers. And at that point, what I would do is unplug the USB serial converter and install these drivers right here. Again, in the video description, I'll put the link. And after that, plug the device in, and hopefully Windows will see it without issue. All right, so let's minimize this. And as we can see here, we're on COM port 6. So I'm just going to leave this up here for a second. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go get PuTTY. And PuTTY is the SSH terminal type program to look at the output from that card. So back to your browser here, and in the search, if use Google and you'll find it every time. Just type in PuTTY into your search window, then you get download PuTTY, a free SSH telnet client for Windows. Click on that, then scroll down, or actually here's download PuTTY. Click on this link here, and it'll give you another link. So you got to dig a little bit to get to the bottom of it. And then you go here to putty.exe. See, 4 windows on Intel x86. So we're going to hit putty.exe here, and then save the file. Now, my browser is set up to ask me where to save the file to. Yours may not be, and if it's not, then more than likely it's going to the download directory or the last place you told it to download. So I'm going to hit save file. It's asking me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it on the desktop for convenience. And it doesn't have an install program, but it does keep configuration. So let's go here. I'm going to minimize my browser. And now you can see that PuTTY is here. And what we're going to do is double click on this. And then you'll get the default session. I have a couple of things in here installed. You shouldn't have them there. Let me delete these for there. There's what yours should look like when you first open it up. Remembering here that my UART bridge is on COM port 6. Yours may be on a different port, but it's important to find out which port it's on. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to connect to it. So the next thing we need is to configure PuTTY to talk to this USB connection. So here's the configuration as far as the serial is concerned. And what we do is we'll go down here to serial, like they have here, highlight the serial at the bottom, and then change to your according COM port. In my case, it's 6. Change your speed to 11, 15, 200. Make sure that 8 and 1 are here on data bits and stop bits. Parity to none, and flow control to none. Then hit, I guess you could hit open here, but we're going to just go back to your session here. So I'll show you one more trick. When you go to the session, click on serial, and you'll see that your COM port is the correct one, the one I picked anyways, and then your speed is correct. At this point here, you may want to save the session in case you ever want to reinitiate it. You don't have to go through those steps anymore. So I'm going to just say serial here to router. Call it whatever you wish, and just click on save. Now, anytime you want to reconnect, all you have to do is click on this and hit open, and you'll get on it. So next thing we're going to do is open up the serial connection. So I'm going to hit open here, and you'll get this black box. Well, your router is off, so there's nothing in here. Now, using your keyboard, just hold down your control key and then the C key, so control C, hold that down, and make sure that you're highlighted on the COM 6 PuTTY screen at this point. And while holding down your control and C, just turn on your router, and you'll see an output begin if everything's connected correctly. If you don't get this output, then I would say at this point, check your transmit and receive lines, and basically reverse them, because you probably have them backwards. And just reverse your transmit and receive lines. Check, make sure you've got everything connected correctly and the pins are soldered in the right place. But once you do that, it stops. Control C stops it at this point. It says startup canceled, right? Hopefully yours does the same thing. If yours doesn't do this step, then I would say try it again a few times, see if you can get it. If that doesn't work, I heard another trick for doing this is to unplug the ground cable while you're doing it, and see what happens, or unplug it and plug it back in while you're doing it and see what happens. And try that a few times, but make sure you're doing just the ground cable. Now we're into the router. Now we're ready to go on to the next step. The next step is we have to go and get the original firmware for your router. Now, if you don't have access to the internet because your router is pooched or not working, my best suggestion is take a USB thumb drive to your buddy's house and go get the software there. I mean, it's very light software. It'll fit on just about any thumb drive. So at this point, I'm assuming that you're going to have this software or the ability to get this software. So next, we got to go get the firmware for the router, the original firmware. Though it is available for TP-Link, it's not the correct one. I'm going to show you the link for it, and I'm going to put the link in the video description so you can go get it. And it's a specific type of firmware, and you need to get this one to rescue the router. This firmware is specific as it is stripped down and separated into two separate files, and therefore the stock firmware that you get from TP-Link would not do. You need this specific file and specific firmware files to actually flash it back to stock. It worked for me. I'm sure it'll work for you. So next, we're going to go get that software. Here are the links that you need to go get the stock firmware for the TP-Link Archer C9. These are not standard stock firmwares. And what I mean by that is that the regular stock firmware is going to be one file, and it's usually a bin or bin file. You just use that and it works. This is actually two files when you get it, and I'll show you why that's significant, because you need to use both files to revert the router back to the TP-Link stock firmware. So at this point, just going to highlight one of these, and I'm going to put these in the video description for you. And yes, there are two links here just in case the first site ever goes down. You have an alternate site to go get these from, and if at any time neither one of these works for you, just give me a note or a comment saying that they don't work, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible with an alternate site. And like I said, I'm going to put it in the video description. Then I'm going to go to my browser, and here we're going to put the address in here, and it's a direct download link. So basically, once you hit go on this, it'll do this. Okay, so you've chosen to save the stock firmware. You choose where you want that to go. I'm going to choose a particular file on my C drive, which is the Archer C9 serial recovery folder. Sorry, not file, but folder. You can put it wherever you'd like. Just remember where you put it. And if you don't get the option to save where you'd like when you download the file, usually that means it's going into your download directory. But I assume that you know how to handle that. So here we're going to hit save. It's a very short file, so it won't take long to download and save. So next we're going to go to File Explorer, and I'm going to go to my C drive and go look at that folder where I saved it, which is Archer C9 serial recovery. And here you'll see that I have a stock firmware file that's a zip file. It's got a little zipper on it. And I'm just going to right click this and hit open. And then you get a firmware folder, so double click that. And what you want is these two files right here, the 12.bin and the mtd3.bin. So again, you can see this is different than your regular stock firmware. I'm going to highlight both of these. You could hit Control A, and then I'm going to hit copy. You could hit Control C to do the same thing, but then I'm going to go back to the original folder, the AC9 serial recovery folder. Then I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to hit paste, so right click, hit paste, and again you could hit Control V to make that happen as well. And now we have the two stock bin files that we need. Now I've shut down my PuTTY, but I'm assuming you've already configured your PuTTY, so I'm going to double click that. And let's see, I can't open any further than that. And I got my serial to router configuration saved here, so I'm just going to load that. If you don't have it, just set it up the way I showed you earlier. And this is my settings for that. So currently, we're ready to go with PuTTY. So I'm just going to open it up here. And it gives me a blank or a black PuTTY screen. That's because my router is currently off. Next thing we're going to do is hold down the Control and C key at the same time. So CTRL, Control, and the C letter on your keyboard. Just hold that down, Control C, and we're going to turn the router on. And what this will do is interrupt the boot process if it's in any kind of loop for you, and that should stop it from booting, and then we'll move on from there. So I'm going to turn the router on now. And there you go. That worked. It says startup canceled, Control C because I'm holding it down. And now we're ready to enter the commands into that router to actually download the file over to the router and fix it. Now, of course, you're going to need to set up your network to make this happen. Okay. So at this point, we got everything we need. We got the firmware files downloaded and ready to go. I've got PuTTY configured correctly. That's working. And the router is responding to our Control-C. Now, if it doesn't respond to the Control-C, like I said before, you can try playing with the ground wire while this is happening to see if you can reset it. But again, this is the way mine is working right now. Okay, so at this point, we need to set up the network environment to make this happen correctly. So that's what we're going to do next. And after that, we're going to get on to flashing the firmware. All right, I said we were going to set up the network environment. Part of doing the setting up the network environment is going to get a piece of software called DD-32. So in your search window for your Explorer or Firefox or whatever you're using, you just type in TFTPD32. And then you'll get an option for the download. So let's just click on download. And then you get the TFTP server, TFTPD32 link here. And it should look just like this. And again, I'll put this link into the video description. So let me just grab that right now. And what we're going to do is go get this program to install. So I'm just putting this here for now. Sorry. Excuse me. There you go. And so we click on that link. And then you have a whole bunch of TFTPD software. The latest version as of this video is 4.52. Use the latest of whatever they have. If it goes to 4.53, whatever, choose the same version I'm using here, which is the second choice, TFTPD32 Standard Edition Installer. So I'm going to click on that, save it, and I'm going to save it in the same directory, the Archer C9 serial recovery. So here we're going to hit save, and that's it, it's saved. And after that, we need to install it. So, and by the way, what the TFTPD software does is it becomes a file server that the router sucks the file in. Once you tell it to, I say that I want to flash the firmware. So let's go to the Archer C9 serial recovery, and now you can see that I have the TFTPD here. So this is where I put it on my drive. Wherever you put it, just click on that. And we're getting a user account control here. Of course, we're going to say yes. And you get the installation. Of course, I'm going to agree. Choose the defaults. Hit next. Again, the defaults. Install. And then hit close. Okay, so at this point, you should have if you chose the defaults, you should have a link to TFTPD on your desktop. So double click that and you see the program is running. So perfect. Got everything running here. Next thing we're going to need to do is, I'm just going to leave that running for now. I've got PuTTY running. I've got TFTPD running. So our software is all ready to go. Next we're going to do is configure our network. So down here you should have a network icon, whether it's wireless or a hard LAN connection, who knows. Just right click it, choose open and open network and sharing center. And here we're going to go to change adapter settings. And you'll see I have various LAN connections or WAN connections, regardless, Wi-Fi and LAN connections. And currently you can see that my Wi-Fi is on. So we're going to turn that off. So we're going to right click that, choose properties. And like I said, you can tell because its state changed once I plugged it in. So choose properties, go to TCP/IP version 4 here. So right click, so again, sorry. I'm going to right click this, choose properties. Then we're going to double click on Internet Protocol version 4, TCP/IPv4. This is the state you should find it in. Obtain a IP address automatically. Okay, so we've got the router, the PuTTY booted up, and we have everything connected correctly. Now we need to put the IP address that your router is looking for here, right? So the way to determine that is we're going to go here to PuTTY again. Let me minimize this out of the way here. Okay, and here we're going to put in if CONIFG. Okay, enter. And you'll see that you have a IP address 192.168.0.1. Okay, so that means that we're on the 0 network. Okay, you might have something different like 192.168.1.1, and if you do, that'll change what you put into the network configuration. So again, mine's on the 0.1 network, so we're going to put this into this address. And this is specific. You have to put the correct one in. 192.168.0.66. All right, that's my IP address because back down here, I'm on the 192.168.0 network. That's what the router is set to. And it's going to be looking for the TFTP server on this IP address. Right? Again, if you get something different here, like 192.168.1.1, then you would change this 0 to 1, right? Or 2 or 3, depending on what you see right here. Okay? So next we're going to click on the next subnet mask field here, and you can see that it auto-populated this. So here we're going to hit OK. That's it for your network configuration. And at this point, we're almost ready. One more thing to do. So let's just minimize this stuff out of the way. I'm going to close that window. Let's go back to our TFTP D software. And you notice here that now it's showing the Realtek 192.168.0.66, which means it sees our Ethernet connection on the right IP address. So, you don't need to go there. Just note that it's there. Now, next we're going to hit Browse on TFTP32, and we're going to go to the directory where we put the serial recovery stock firmware. So I'm going to go click here, hit OK. All right. Then we're going to hit Show Directory here. And here you'll see all the firmware, all the files in that directory. So TFTP 32, TFTPD 32 is now looking at the right directory to serve these files out. Okay, so that's ready to go and configured correctly. Close. Next, we've got to go back to our PuTTY terminal, and we're going to type in these commands exactly. I will put these commands into the video description as well. So here's the commands you're going to need to actually have this happen. Notice that I said there's going to be 2 commands that you need, and I have 4 up here. Reason being is that I have a set for the 0 network or the 1 network. So if you're on the 0 network, as I showed you earlier where to find out, then use the 0 command. If you're on the 1 network, use the 1 command. It's the same down here. I have a 0 here and a 1 here. So make sure you use the one that you set your network card to. Okay. So let's take the first. And by the way, I'm going to put these in the video description as well. I'm going to take the first command with TRX at the end. I'm going to hit copy on that. Go back to PuTTY, and I'm going to minimize this out of the background so you can see what happens. TFTP32 is running. It's configured correctly. It's in the right directory, so on and so forth. Show directory here. You see that it's in the same directory as the 12 bin is. So, okay, so we're ready to go there. Oh, let's hit close there. That was a mistake. Let me get that again. Here we go. So highlight it, choose copy, and so now we're ready to go. I'm going to right click on the PuTTY box, and it automatically pastes my command into it. And as you can see, it says flash no header, dash no header, the IP address, the bin file, and flash 0 TRX. So here we're going to hit enter, and it should connect to the TFTPD server over here and take that file, and you'll see that happening. So let's hit that and hit enter. And there you go. It's transferring the file from TFTPD over here. And without issue at all, we just let it go till it's done. So I'm going to do this real time here so you see how long this takes. All right, there's that done. Now it's saying programming here at the bottom. It said reading first. Wait for the programming to finish. Again, I'm doing this real time, so you know how long this takes. Just be patient with it. And there'll be no activity on the lights. All my lights are on right now. Yours may be different. Who knows, depending on the state that your router is on. So I'm just going to let it run. It's actually still programming. I'm going to let it go at its rate. When it's done, I'm doing this real time so you know how long it takes, at least how long it took on mine. It should be similar on yours. Saw that it ended there. What you should have is exactly what I have there. Your status here should be, command status should be 0. All right, so that was successful for me. The programming was done actually successfully. Now we're going to run the second command, which is a very similar command as well. It's another load command. So let's go to the second command. Again, you have two options. You have a 0.66 or a 1.66, depending on what network your router is on. You're going to hit copy on this, minimize it. Now this one is much quicker because it's a smaller file, so right click on putty and you should get the command pasted in there. Now it's ready to do this file, and again it will take it from TFTP32 and flash it into the router. So I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm doing this real time. That's super fast, right? And then, as it says, programming done, command status 0. Now, again, if you want to see what's going on with TFTPD32, you can go to log viewer, and it shows you here everything that happened on it recently, including the files that we sucked in to the router. So at this point, we're ready to restart the router. Okay, so basically all I'm going to do here is just shut it down and restart it. And at this point, your router should be flashed and working perfectly, but we're going to verify that in a second. So shut it down, turn it back on, and you can see that it's loading and running. The lights are responding. Perfectly. Let this whole boot process happen. Now I have 4 LEDs on my router showing up. Okay, I believe at this point it is actually done booting up, and it should be now waiting on the IP address that we flashed it on. It may have switched in the process, so it should be on either 192.168.0.1 or 192.168.1.1, depending on your router. Mine, I know it's going to be at 0.1, and the way I know that is that when I boot it, if you scroll back up, when it was booting up, you'll see right here that it set the IP address to be 192.168.0.1. So at this point, we're going to go back to the router, sorry, to the browser. We're going to type in 192.168.0.1, enter, and there's your reverted back to stock TP-Link wireless router, the Archer C9, waiting for you to log in. And at this point, we're going to type in admin, and the default username and password is admin. Make sure you change that on your router. Okay, so admin. You don't want to leave the defaults. Anybody can get into your router. And now it's going through the quick setup process. I'm going to skip that by going to advanced here. And as you can see, the router is now functioning perfectly. Now, the next thing you want to do really is you want to update it now to the correct or the latest firmware, and if you want the stock firmware. And then, so I suggest that greatly. You want to go with the stock firmware from TP-Link. So let's see, where's my, okay. Then we're going to go, to do that, you just go to System Tools, and notice here it says WAN port is unplugged because I don't have anything plugged into the WAN port. So System Tools, and then Firmware Upgrade. So at this point, I'm not going to show you how to do the firmware upgrade. It's up to you, how, to get the latest one from TP-Link for your region, US or Canada or Europe or wherever you are, and then continue on. But good news is your router should be back up and running and working for you again. That's the end of my video, and I hope this worked for you. I will be exploring other ways of doing this in the future, but at this current point in time, this is the only way I know of to revert this router back to the stock TP-Link firmware. One more thing here, forgot to mention, we need to set the network environment back to the way it was. So I'm going to open up your network and sharing center here by right-clicking the network icon, bottom right. Change adapter settings, of course. And I noticed that I've already enabled this Wi-Fi, but yours should be disabled at this point. So right-click it, choose Enable. Then go to your unidentified network and go to Properties. So I guess to your Ethernet adapter that's actually active. Properties. Go back to Internet Protocol version 4, TCP/IP v4. Double-click that. Choose Obtain IP Address, the radio button, Obtain IP Address automatically, and choose the Obtain DNS address or server address automatically. Hit OK. OK. And TFTP server stops working at that point if you had it running because you've changed the IP address that it was working on. So I'm just going to hit close here. Don't worry about that. And now if you just choose status, you'll see that it's enabled, and it should have a new IP address here, and it does. It's got 192.168.0.100. Okay, so right now it's using DHCP and getting the IP address automatically set by the router, as it should. That concludes our reverting back to stock, our Archer or TP-Link Archer C9 router. Hopefully that helped you out. If you turn your firewalls off in order to do this, which I do recommend on doing, whether it's Windows Firewall or some third-party firewall you're running, then you should turn them back on as well. That's it for my video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a favor, click on the like button right down here. And if you wish to subscribe to my channel, just click on this link up here. And that should subscribe you to the Richard Lloyd channel, or Richard Lloyd USA channel. Okay, again, thank you very much for your time and watching.